Hey everybody, first of all, my apologies for coming on an hour later than I intended, but I will be candid with you and I will couch what happened in the form of some advice that anyone considering starting their own YouTube live stream should heed. And I am not kidding, you really should heed it. Do not have a full glass of prune juice 40 minutes before you start your show. I repeat, do not have a full glass of prune juice 40 minutes before you start your show along with your dinner because you will feel it. And that is precisely what happened within about, I would say, 10 minutes before I was about to start. Wow. And I still feel it, okay? So, hey, things happen. The show will go on, and it did. Well, I adjusted the time. Hey, by the way, if the Las Vegas Stadium Authority can say that they're on schedule but not tell everybody that they're adjusting schedule, I can tell you that I'm on the schedule even though I adjusted my schedule. But I'm not talking about that tonight. What I'm talking about is pure and simple the news about the Oakland Athletics ballpark and what is coming this Monday, the 13th of May. And what's coming is a special meeting of the Port of Oakland, and the A's are asking you to join them for a rally ahead of the Port of Oakland vote, which is at noon at Jack London Square, Water Street, and Broadway. And you would say, okay, what the heck is this whole thing about? Well, the port is considering the approval of an exclusive negotiating agreement with the Oakland Athletics to build a new ballpark at Howard Terminal. And the project has opposition. It has opposition from some longtime dwellers at Jack London. It has some opposition from San Francisco longshoremen. But that's about it. What it needs is your support. And I'm here to not just explain why it's important, but how we got here, and also show you some of the changes that have been installed in this ballpark proposal. This proposal started really as far back as 1996. That's when the Oakland Raiders returned to Oakland from Los Angeles and played at the Coliseum that was upgraded really for them, but also it wasn't entirely upgraded for the A's, even though the A's did get a nice new kitchen out of it. The trouble is that what the A's once enjoyed was taken away by something that you and I now know is called Mount Davis. And the new owners of the A's, just a few years prior to that, Ken Schott and Steve Hoffman, did not take kindly to the return of the Raiders' impact on the Coliseum that they came to know and love. They felt it was less a baseball stadium than it was, with the great scene into the Oakland Hills from home plate, which was captured on television for millions to see, particularly during the World Series that was played in Oakland and in San Francisco during the 1989 Major League Baseball season, which unfortunately was slightly marred by the Loma Prieta earthquake, but the A's came out the victor. But I digress. My point is that stadium, as it looked, had a long, storied history, and the owners of the A's were not happy. They were considering, and did at least try and extend overtures toward, moving the A's to Sacramento. That's right. Something called the Sacramento A's was a lot more than just simply, talk among drunk people in a bar. It was quite serious. But it never came to fruition. Ken Schott and Steve Hoffman did sell the Athletics, and they had a number of takers and considered buyers, including, because of my involvement representing the mayor of Oakland, Elihu Harris, Magic Johnson. Yes, I did say that, Magic Johnson, and the late Frank Robinson, okay? John Cariotis approached me. He was, and still is, a developer. Couldn't get the two together, and I think in retrospect, talked a lot more game than he really had. He didn't want my involvement, made it sound like he had both of them in his palm, and neither Robinson nor Johnson said that they ever had to sit down with John Cariotis, which I thought was embarrassing for Cariotis. Again, I digress. That didn't happen. The eventual buyer of the Athletics turned out to be a person that basically owns it right now. And the idea for quite some time, well, was originally for the Athletics to have a kind of stadium, but Lou Wolf didn't feel that he could work with the city politics and the slowness. So he tried to move to San Jose. I'm not going to bore you with the story regarding the court battle. Let's just say that didn't happen. The A's are rooted in Oakland, as Dave Cavall likes to say, and Lou Wolf gave way to his business partners, really his financiers, and they hired, as A's new president approximately 3 years ago, Dave Cavall. Dave Cavall was locally famous for building a $100 million stadium for the San Jose Earthquakes, which are owned by the same people that own the A's, and they believed that he was more than capable of steering them on the right path to building a ballpark. And arguably, that's exactly where the A's are right now. If you haven't seen it before, so that's how all of this started, and then it fits and starts with involvement of different business people, and then the development of Coliseum City by Frank Dobson, Steve Lowe, and Bob Lesty in 2004, and then presented to business groups in 2009 when Ron Dellums was the mayor of Oakland, the late Ron Dellums. Eventually, what happened was that this idea first moved into a place where there were 7 different sites considered way back in 1999 through 2000. John Russo, who was the Oakland City District 2 City Council member, had become the new Oakland City Attorney, but one with a bent towards straightening out our sports problems. We had a lot of contractual issues with the Warriors. John walked in and within, I think, a 6-week time period, sat down, settled all the business, streamlined the relationships with all the sports teams. And John took he and his sons, John's been a friend of mine for a long time, going back to, 1990, took all of his sons around the country touring ballparks and financed the development of a study, which is still online, that looked at many different possible sites. The top site was one called Uptown, and that is where Forest City Apartments is located right now. Jerry Brown did not want a baseball stadium downtown. City manager Robert Bobb turned city administrator when we went from a weak mayor form of government to a strong mayor form of government, was fired by Jerry Brown in 2002, and Mr. Bobb was the same person that tabbed me to try to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. We lost to Jacksonville by 8 NFL owner votes. Jerry, for reasons that I'm still not clear of, or I could speculate, and controversially I might add, simply was against sports, and at least in the Oakland context. And people, the problem was that there are people who thought, well, Jerry's this intelligent guy, and so therefore it must be right, and he's a celebrity. I'm not kidding you, okay? I'm not kidding you. That was a main driver to why a number of people, aside from his liberal bent, went along with Jerry, even when he was taking actions that were politically conservative. So Jerry derailed a downtown ballpark stadium that really we should have had, but didn't have. The other great top-ranked site was the Coliseum itself. And so for a long time, it was the talk was to build a stadium for the A's, but then a stadium for the Raiders, but there was never really a sound focus as to how to get that done. So then a group came forward led by Doug Boxer, who was California Senator Barbara Boxer's son, is a well-known Oakland attorney, and T. Gary Rogers and a number of other people to build a ballpark at Howard Terminal. That started in 2012, really caught steam in 2013, but unfortunately was killed by the Port of Oakland commissioners because of a great deal of opposition of the somewhat same kind you're seeing today in 2014. And it was a lot of the problems with Schnitzer Steel and with less so with the unions, but primarily Schnitzer Steel then really blocked the ability to get things done. When Millie Schaff became the 50th mayor of Oakland, she said to me personally that she wanted a ballpark at Howard Terminal. Libby's wanted that for all of her entire time as mayor of Oakland. And so it was her desire, combined with the interest of the ownership of the A's, to get that ballpark at Howard Terminal that really has driven this project and to this point. And it just needed a person who really could strike the right tone with the mayor of Oakland, together with John J. Fisher, who's the owner of the A's, and that person was Dave Cavall. And Dave's combination of maturity, yet youth, and experience, and executive acumen really brought the A's from rock bottom in terms of their planning for a ballpark to here. Okay, that's how much of a change the A's have experienced because of Dave Cavall's work and involvement in leadership. He's made all the right moves. I may criticize something maybe here or there, but Dave Cavall's made all the right moves. So where we are, one of the things that Dave wanted to do was build something that would really set Oakland on the map. And that's this. This is the ballpark at Howard Terminal. Originally, it had more of a kind of a right-angle design, but they made the decision to curve it. And, of course, this says, join us for the rally. Now, the main question is, what's it really about? In this overview, they say that we plan to build, the next generation ballpark at Howard Terminal. They have 3 project goals: long-term success in Oakland, next generation ballpark, and as an anchor to mixed-use development, and a transformative economic and community benefit for Oakland and the East Bay. They want to make sure that it's bigger than baseball, honors East Oakland with respect to the Coliseum plans, because they also own that property, and say that they have home field advantage using 100% privately financing, which is not exactly going to be the case, and of course rooted in Oakland. Those are the guiding principles that they've laid out. And in the ballpark itself, that's designed by big architects, Bjarke Ingels Group, this is what they've come up with. And what is there now is unused. There's primarily used for container storage. When I say it's unused, I meant it was undeveloped. What is here now is actually double the size of what was originally planned. Housing and office back here, and the sale of land to develop that, as well as tax increment financing, will help finance this development. The state of California recently it's on its way toward, with the government's signature, approving a tax increment financing district which will take up Jack London Square. This is not Jack London Square. This is actually Howard Terminal. Jack London Square is really down here, okay? Hey, Patrick Blackman. But this will be a new town in town. You can tell by the density with respect to the railroad tracks nearby. Now, this is another view of it, and it's kind of transparent design. And it says, "We are excited," this is Dave Cavall, "we are excited to build a bold, iconic ballpark at Howard Terminal. This design will allow us to blur the boundaries of a traditional ballpark and integrate it into the surrounding neighborhood." This is another walkway path design. I want to commend the A's for finally giving us artist renditions that have people of color involved in them. And I should say, a lot of architects, not, well, I said finally, I should correct myself because it wasn't the A's fault, but a number of architects have had people just all white, you know, as if they were trying to erase black folks from Oakland. Thankfully, the A's are not projecting that image. Here is another interior scene of what will be a very exciting concept. So that is the ballpark at Jack London from the ballpark's perspective. This is, I'm going to skip over the Coliseum redevelopment part because that really doesn't deal with the meeting at the port. The gondola plan is very controversial, okay? And the idea is to have this flyover, and I'll run this video so you can see what the proposal is. Now, the problem with what I'm about to show you is that, and I'm going to let it run, I'm going to show you what the problem is. First of all, you get on it. Notice, see all those people over here? You're basically going up this ramp. There's no place to buy anything, no place to spend your money. But the idea is you get on this gondola, all right? And when you're on it, they have you actually flying in the air. But the idea is you're going over Water Street. This is Water Street. Broadway is over here. So they're taking you off the corridor where most of Oakland's businesses are, which is over here, all right? Right here, in the air, and they're going to deposit you. You're flying past the movie. There's a movie theater right here, okay? They're going to deposit you right there. Boom. All right? You get off there, and then you can walk. You're going to be able to walk to the stadium from that point. But note, when you walk through here, it does not benefit any local business other than the one owned by the Athletics, and that's the ballpark. That is the problem with the gondola. The A's should have a, now they talk about economic impact here and everything. I'm not going to bore you with, with all of that, all right? And they say that gondola linking downtown would generate $685 million in economic benefits. Folks, I'm sorry. That's a joke. That's not happening, all right? And they have these renderings of the gondola, and the reason why it's not happening is because it lifts for the reasons I just showed you, okay? You can't generate that much economic impact with something that is in the air as opposed to something on the ground. Now, if the A's wanted to really generate economic impact related to transportation, the A's could support a kind of a light rail system that's on ground, at grade, as they say, and moving from BART with an intermediate stop or a couple of intermediate stops, and then go all the way down to Jack London. But that's one way that they could really generate it. Now, that $600 million, I would argue, is going to happen with the gondola or without. It's the ballpark. As Walt Disney once said when he was talking about Cinderella's castle, you have to have a carrot at the end of every stick, which explains the hub and spoke system that led to the design of Disneyland and Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdoms. But and the problem is that Dave is not thinking, that kind of thinking is not wound its way into this project. And they not only have the gondola to break down, pretty hard to develop any kind of economic impact when people are hanging in the air screaming for their lives. Okay, so no, I'm not a fan of the gondola, but I'm a fan of the project. Uh, something else. So something else you would say in terms of the environmental plans. Uh, it reads, after continued conversations with community leaders, we increasingly see that our ballpark project can be an essential catalyst to address long-standing environmental problems that have plagued West Oakland for far too long. That's true, because environmental cleanup is needed at Howard Terminal. The tax increment financing district, what is that? What that is basically is essentially simple. It says that they're going to take the property taxes that are normally distributed between the city of Oakland, the county of Alameda, BART, and other organizations. They're going to give it to a special agency, which is then going to use that tax increment in part to help build affordable housing and also some market rate housing at Jack London, a mix, and have other programs of business development there along the lines of business assistance. And then that would generate, and you say, how does that work in terms of formulaically? It's something called tax increment financing, is where you take the base year of assessed value of the property, let's say it's 1.5 billion, and then Proposition 13 allows you as the elected official to artificially inflate the value of that property 2% each year. So you can use a 40-year bond issue, and you would come out of it assuming the standard 1% rate. You're looking at roughly about $329 million in revenue that the A's can apply to the project. That's a substantial amount of money. Okay, hey Sean Groen, how you doing? That's a substantial amount of money. And so you can thank State Senator Nancy Skinner for running that through, but you can thank me for telling Dave that that should be done. I'm not kidding you. Now, the controversy with this project has to do with the fact that the dang thing does stick out into the channel, and it requires some diversion of water traffic, but not so much that it would entirely stop the operation of the port. But that conflict, a fixable conflict, I might add, is enough to say, have some people who make their money from port operations say, hey, look, we don't want this at all. Now, the issue with those people who are talking is that they all live in San Francisco. They don't live in Oakland. So it looks on its face, the image is very bad. Between the San Francisco Chronicle that's advancing the voice of these folks and these folks talking, it looks like San Francisco's trying to basically stick it to Oakland yet again. First, they steal the Warriors from us. Then they badmouth the idea of saving the Raiders. And then they try to derail the A's. That's what it looks like, okay? That's what it looks like. And I can't think of any other way to say it looks like something else. Now, there are people who do live at Jack London, like Vivian Kahn, who have strong objections to it, but I think part of Vivian's objections have to do with a kind of a dislike of sports as much as anything else. But there are other people who simply do, and I'm not trying to diminish, I have a great deal of respect for Vivian, I've known her for quite some time. I'm not trying to diminish their points of view, but I am explaining what I think is what's driving them inside. And, you know, whether or not, because the question is, well, do they go to the Coliseum? You know, do they go to the A's games? And I don't know that they do. I've had, when I was talking with an A's fan during A's Fan Fest last year, and this is on, you can see this on Zenny62 on YouTube, a couple of persons who said they're residents just interrupted our conversation and said, hey, no stadium, no stadium. And I asked them to explain why, and they said that the stadium does not provide wage level jobs. Folks, that is not true. That is simply not true. The average wage level of a stadium job is just over $68,000, okay? Now, in the Bay Area, that's still not a lot of money, but it's far better than many of the other jobs that a person can get today around there. And not only that, with wage inflation, you could see it at $70,000 or $80,000, and our managerial jobs do reach the $100,000 level. But the expense of the Bay Area is a problem born of poor housing policy. I'm not going to delve into that in great detail at all here right now. You can't fix it with this project. What this project can do, however, is provide, first of all, a recreational element to enjoy a major league sports activity in Oakland rather than going somewhere else to see it. It adds to basically the overall civic health of Oakland. It adds to the positive image of Oakland. And think about it. Here I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and when I hear about Oakland, it's through what the Warriors are doing, particularly when they play in Oakland, or the Raiders, or the Oakland Athletics. Sports is an extension of a city's identity. A lot of people around the world only know of cities primarily through their sports teams. And that's a great attractor. It was Oakland's way or statement of saying, hey, you know what? We exist as a civic entity separate from San Francisco. There are people who, want to make Oakland a kind of a bedroom community of San Francisco. There are those like myself who say no. In fact, we're already seeing the damage of that in these gargantuanly high housing prices and this ungodly high homeless population, which has reached epidemic proportions. So, in my view, what the A's are building is a stab toward a redevelopment of the kind of Oakland that we knew, where we had places to enjoy life. We're threatening the erosion of those places in Oakland, and not to mention other amenities that make that up. So, going back to the ballpark itself and the other considerations here, the A's say, will Howard Terminal site be environmentally safe to build on? They say yes. They say they're not trying to shortcut the approval process. They did get a streamlining, not the first one. In fact, the Warriors received this very similar streamlined approval process to build Chase Center, FYI. The stadium will be powered by renewable energy, at least that's the A's objective here. They say the ballpark orientation will not obscure views of Oakland's waterfront, but I have to point out that part of Oakland's waterfront was not known for people going down there to camp out to enjoy the view. They say that they plan, in terms of other environmental benefits, to transform an underutilized urban industrial site into a model of sustainable development that will include a ballpark, public parks, and open space housing, including affordable housing, restaurants, retail, and small business space. Project review and approvals by Bay Conservation and Development Commission and the State Lands Commission of California are required under AB 1191. That will ensure the ballpark and the public parks and open spaces provide the highest quality of public assembly and waterfront public access that ties directly to the surrounding area and region. And this does do that. My concern is that the way the ballpark is laid out would seem to imply only a ballpark use for baseball, when it seems as if baseball itself, in terms of interest, has seen better days. Will the A's move a soccer team into that facility? Can it be altered so that it can accommodate a professional football team? Can it be multi-use enough to assure that it remains a going concern for years to come, even if baseball itself declines? Okay, that's my question. And that's a long-term, you'd say that's a long-term question, like maybe 30 or 40 years out. But, looking at attendance figures and declines, it may be sooner than that. So I think there needs to be that taken into consideration as a way of fashioning a future for the ballpark that says that it will last beyond baseball itself. Okay, and I did say that seriously. Okay, a facility of this size and expense should be multi-use. It should be something where you can have great concerts, great shows, memorable, life-changing happenings, right? Why not? Considering where it's located and what it's going to do for the community. I don't think that's out of bounds at all. Now, so that's my presentation. It's 2 o'clock, and I'm going to talk about this again and again. I apologize for drinking too much prune juice ahead of time. I'll drink it next time. All right, I'll see everybody later.